I'm Sarah Falk, and I'm doing my presentation on the significance of cats in Egypt. There are a lot of people, especially those who aren't fond of cats, that refer to them as independent creatures that view themselves higher than their owners and, are uppity. Well, while many people view this as a negative quality, back in ancient Egypt, it wasn't viewed so negatively. For us to understand why cats were portrayed this way and why they are portrayed this way today, we must first understand where they came from, why they were held to such high standards in Egypt, and what they symbolized. To begin, I'd like to give a background as to where the cats were domesticated. So cats were domesticated anywhere from the 5th millennium in Egypt to 3700 BC. According to the Journal of Archaeological Science in 2014, Van Neer and his co-authors said that there had been skeletal remains of 2 different cats found buried alongside human remains. So the significance of this is that one of the cats, specifically the one found from 3700 BC, actually had a fracture to its femur, which showed that it had actually been cared for because it was a healed fracture where it had been cared for before it was sacrificed. So that shows ownership, and also being buried alongside a human at the feet of a human showed that these jungle cats were taken care of by them. Not only did the skeletal remains verify the domestication, there were lots of paintings and sculptures. One in particular I like to show is this. This portrays a cat in a domestic setting eating under a dining table. You can see someone's feet here. He's eating a fish under the table. And with these jungle cats, I don't think just any cat would be able to come in and eat under your table if it's not your cat. These were fairly large cats at the time, not the small house cats we think of today. But obviously, because they were so important to people, they hold a really special significance in Egyptian culture and in their lives, which brings me to what they symbolize. They were looked at in a higher standing because of the beliefs of the Egyptians. Many Egyptians believed in different gods, specifically the sun god Re and his daughter Sekhmet. So Re had some problems with humanity and the people of his country. So what he decided to do was send his daughter Sekhmet, presented here. She is a half lion, half woman, and he decided he would send her down to earth to take care of his vengeances and to hopefully that they would realize what they've done wrong and that they better not do that again. Well, she went down and took it a little too far, didn't want to stop, got a little bloodthirsty, so she had to be tamed by him, and the way of taming her, he used a red beer and gave it to her, represented it as blood of the animals and the people she was seeking out. And legend has it that after he gave her this red beer, rather than being this angry lion as she was at the time, she curled up and laid down and became a peaceful cat. So she represents peacefulness and also the fighting spirit of cats, because they can be both. There are many stories told, but another one is Bastet. She was a half feline, half woman. They called her the cat goddess, and she was said to be the protector of the felines as well as the protector of those who cared for felines. So this gave incentive for people to not only worship felines, but for them to take care of them, because they were taken care of by Bastet if they made sure cats were taken care of. Kind of a win-win situation. So the significance of these stories explains why cats have become such a dominant feature in Egyptian culture, and that leads to the symbolism and representations of the cat. In each story that you hear from Egyptian history, cats are portrayed as leaders, protectors, and peaceful yet powerful beings such as Sekhmet. Many people believe that the cats were buried at their owner's feet when they passed away, because they were to protect their owner in the afterlife, just as Bastet was to protect them while they were here protecting their felines. It kind of went the other way in the afterlife. The cats took care of their owners. Another thing is, according to the Veneration of Worship and Felines in Ancient Egypt, Riley Winters, a writer for Origins.net, she says that cats may have been comparable to demigods. So not everyone believed that. The ones who believe that, it explains why they worship them, prayed to them. They're actually images of people praying to their cats and having shrines to their cats if the cat was to pass away before them. But mainly they were thought of as representations to the feline gods, like that it was a good way of taking care of the cats, was a good way to uphold the feline gods. Another one is, it actually was against the law in Egypt to kill or harm a cat for purposes other than sacrifice. and was punishable by death. And even things like if cats were smuggled out of the country, the pharaohs would actually send their soldiers after them to find the cats, things like that. This is another one. This is just another example of how important they were. They actually had a sarcophagus for this cat of the Prince Thutmose, and that's a depiction on the cat's sarcophagus. But now that we've got this background on cats, I hope that you can start to understand why they've come about and why they are portrayed the way they are, and maybe even why they see themselves as a higher being, because in their culture and in their background, they were held to those standards. We may not view them that way to such an equivalent here today, but we are able to understand why the people of Egypt did. Just as we have symbols and things we use to represent our country and our culture, that was theirs. That's how they connected the gods and the stories they had told as a physical representation.